Hey everyone, welcome back. I am the Gerbil, and in today's video I would like to talk about the critical avoidance arrow mod to increase your chances of not being critically hit by as much as 120+%. Now, what the hell does that really mean? It basically means that there are things you've probably overlooked that would go a long way to ensuring you never get critically hit again in certain squads with certain characters. And if you get much out of this video, please hit the like and subscribe. Seriously, like a lot, and I mean a lot, of my repeat viewers are not subbed, so please sub. Moving on. So here we go. What is the value of crit avoidance? First off, okay, this is actually one of the easiest mechanics to understand in the game. When you go pew pew or get pew pewed at, your character or the enemy character has a critical chance rating, right? You can look at it in your stats. It's right below your offense value, and it's a flat percentage. Now, this percentage actually goes well above 100%. You can get way up there, and there are, of course, lots of ways to modify it, but let's just keep this rather simple. If you have no crit avoidance, you have no way of reducing the critical chance, and your opponent has a 100% critical chance, let's just assume they're going to critically hit you. If we take a character like Drogon, most people are going to mod Drogon and many other attackers with critical damage arrows and critical damage mod sets. The reason for that is because, let's say your base non-critical hit is like 100,000 damage. We're keeping it simple. Pum, 100,000 damage, no crit. Ooh, that hurts. But the critical damage modifier increases it by that percentage. So my Drogon's critical damage is 240%, which is not the maximum. And that means if somebody goes pew and Drogon critically hits, he's not going to do 100,000 damage. He's going to do 240,000 damage. Essentially 2.5 hits all packed up nicely into one shot. Now that's pretty much the gold standard. That's what you want. You want a high critical damage rate with a high crit chance so that every time you hit, you are effectively hitting a lot harder. Now, there are things that go in there that reduce this damage, such as the target's armor, but basically the point is you can mod your characters for health and protection and defense and try to reduce the amount of damage they take or enable them to take more damage, or you can just make sure you never get critically hit. And that, my friends, is actually where the biggest bang for your buck comes, but only on certain characters with certain conditions. So let's explain this. So critical damage needs to be avoided. How do you avoid critical damage? You don't get critically hit. So you take that enemy's critical chance, and we're going to go with Han Solo here. We're going to say we got 75% critical chance on him. That means, statistically speaking, if you have a 0 crit avoidance modifier, as most characters do, honestly, most have 0, then when Han shoots at you, 75% checks, and basically 3 out of every 4 shots, statistically, is going to be a critical hit. Now consider that Homeboy double taps on basic, and he takes an extra turn after his first special, so pretty much every third turn he's going to triple shot. That's a lot of critical damage you want to avoid getting. So how do you do that? Well, let's just start off with a critical avoidance arrow. At 6 dot, it's worth 35%. Now, what does that mean? That 35% is deducted straight off your opponent's critical chance. So if Han has a 75% critical chance rate and you have a 35% critical avoidance arrow, now Homeboy Han only has a 40% chance. So instead of critically hitting you 3 out of every 4 shots, now he's only critically hitting you 2 out of every 5. See the difference there? And if you put in that multiplier damage of his critical damage, like, you are dramatically reducing the amount of damage you are receiving. And I mean dramatically. You're talking, let's suppose that at 75%, 3 hits, let's not even do the math. I don't really want to do the math. Trust me, it is dramatically reducing it, enabling your character to survive a lot longer. Okay, but Gerbil, 35%, what if the character, the attacker has like 110, 120% crit avoidance? What is this 35% doing? Well, at that point, not a whole lot, to be honest. By itself, the crit avoidance arrow is not doing a lot. I mean, seriously, my Nisa, for example, in GAC, I think she's rocking like 180% critical chance. So 180% take away 35, it's still 100% guaranteed she's going to critically hit every time. So in a lot of cases, it actually is going to do you nothing. But don't despair. There are significantly more ways to increase your critical avoidance. Next one is mastery, critical avoidance mastery. And there are a fair number of characters who get this. So mastery is a confusing topic for a lot of people, and a lot of lifelong SWGOH players, life being since they've been playing since the game started, could not tell you what mastery is. Mastery is a boost to a variety of stats depending on your character's role. If they are an attacker, a support, a tank, and I think healers are lumped in with support. I could be wrong. I don't know exactly how that happens. But attacker, support, or tank. Then there are stat foci that they can have, whether their primary focus in their stat is going to be agility, strength, or tactic. Now, how do you know which those are? When you look at your character statistics and you look at this like right down here at the bottom, strength, agility, and tactics, you can see one of them will be highlighted green. For example, Queen Amidala is a support character, emphasis tactic. Now, when your mastery class then is support tactic, then they will gain a natural crit avoidance boost per relic level. So at relic 9, yeah, I know that's a lot of relics, but at relic 9, a support tactic character, and I put a bunch of them up over here. You can see Radis, Akbar, Traya, Logray, Dacha, Luthen, Jabba, Wat, Boss Nass, Tusken, I think that's Chieftain, I could be wrong, Emperor Palpatine, there are others. They all begin to develop natural crit avoidance rates, up to 21% at relic 9. Now, that's not a lot, 21%, no. But if you add on now a crit avoidance arrow, 21 plus 35, you are now rocking a 56% crit avoidance. Now, to be fair, most enemies in the game, most players, even in the Kyber 1 level, most units are not going to have a natural or even a modded crit chance above 90%. Attackers generally get there anyway, so it's rough. But most people are not. Like, if you look at a lot of characters in there, if they're modded for speed or health or tanks or whatever, then they're probably only pushing a 75% crit chance, which means if they got a 75% crit chance and you take off, what did I just say, 21 for relic 9 support mastery, and then 35 for an arrow, now they're only hitting you for like a 21% critical chance, right? Like, that's pretty solid if I did my math right. Okay, but there's more, because if you look straight below me, you'll see I put CC down minus 25. Well, what on earth is that? Okay, that is teams that apply critical chance down. What teams are those? Well, critical chance down is a debuff that inflicts the opponent with minus 25% critical chance. So if you have a 21% crit avoidance baked into your support tactic role, mastery class, then you have a 35% critical chance avoidance arrow, and then you land a critical chance debuff on your opponents, now you are looking at minus 81% critical chance. Now, that basically means the enemy squad, for all intents and purposes, is no longer going to be able to critically hit you. And that means you have effectively reduced their damage output anywhere from 150% to, I don't know, whatever their critical damage is. But that's a significant reduction in damage, enabling you to stay alive a lot longer. So who has critical chance down? Well, these are the characters right there. And you'll notice Padawan Obi-Wan is there. And I just looked at Queen Amidala as an example of her leadership role as a support tactic. So combining her natural crit chance with a crit avoidance arrow with a Padawan Obi-Wan, your opponents are basically never going to critically hit you. More on that in just a second. The rest of these characters all apply critical chance down in some capacity. Shore Trooper does it on basic. Leia Organa does it. I don't remember the condition, but they all do. And so these are characters that you might want to consider a critical chance arrow with, and some of their teammates. Let's look at some more, the fourth way. There are 4 ways to boost crit avoidance, okay? So we just looked at the mod plus 35%, the mastery maximum right now 21%, and now the debuff minus 25% enemy critical chance. What's the 4th way? The 4th way comes in kits and kit abilities. So here's an example. Darth Traya, support tactic, boom, right there, natural crit avoidance. Add a critical avoidance arrow on her, and now the leadership, Sith allies have 40% critical chance, or critical avoidance. Okay, 40 plus 21 plus 20 or 35, we're now looking at 96% crit avoidance. This is why every once in a while you go up against a Sith Triumvirate team and you just cannot kill them because you cannot critically hit them if they are modded this way. 96%. Now that just comes right off your enemy's critical chance rate. So even if they've got 110%, right, critical chance, like 110%, actually now with this, it's 14 when you're pew-pewing at Traya, right? So a crit avoidance arrow under her leadership with her support bonus through mastery is like, honestly, a no-brainer. You will get way, way, way more mileage in a crit avoidance arrow on her than you would out of a protection arrow or a health arrow. Now, what about speed? Speed's eternal, right? Yeah, speed is important, but you have to really ask yourself, do you always have to be super fast? And the answer really is no. Speed, I'm not saying speed is overrated, but in a lot of cases it's overrated, right? Speed is linear in the game in the sense that if the enemy's speed is only, 20 faster than you, yeah, they're going to go first. They're going to have initiative on you, but they're not going to lap you until there's like 10 to 15 turns have passed, because the difference is only like that 20, right? So if your speed is 200 and they're 220, then they literally need 10 turns to lap you. Otherwise, they just have the initiative, and that's it. For the next 10 turns, it doesn't matter. And Traya, of course, her benefit is that she's going to isolate somebody, shutting them out of the game anyway, for the most part. So that speed becomes less relevant for Traya. Nihilist needs the speed. Promise. That's my humble opinion. Okay, here's another example. So let's get rid of Traya for a second. Malgus. While in Grand Arena, Sith Empire allies have plus 50 mastery. That increases the 21% now. If they were at Relic 9 and you give them 20 or 50% more mastery, their crit avoidance actually continues to go up. How much? I don't know. I didn't look into it, but it goes up. And they gain 80% crit avoidance. 80. So if you put a critical avoidance arrow on Malgus, now he has 115% crit avoidance, and let's just suffice to say, he ain't going to be critically hit. Now, what about if they have advantage? Yeah, they're going to critically hit you still with advantage, because advantage, while it says it's a guaranteed critical hit, it's actually not. In the code for the game, advantage is actually plus 200% critical chance. So it's a lot. You're still probably going to be critically hit. But still, Malgus is a tank. He's going to be absorbing hits. He actually gains stacking health throughout the battle when he basics, I think it is. And he has ways of healing as he goes, and damage he receives is reduced already if you have this Omicron. So if you put in reduced damage, healing abilities, and then basically never gets critically hit because 80 plus 35, that goes a long way. So who all really should you put a crit avoidance arrow on? Well, these are my opinions, right? And your mileage may vary in the way you run your squad and mod everybody else, but here's kind of a little checklist that I would encourage thought about. First off, is the character a support tactic? If so, then they already have an embedded natural critical avoidance. So any crit avoidance you can compound with that just greatly increases the odds that they will not be critically hit. And as a result, they benefit from it. So all the characters I showed before, plus, like I said, there are others, like Logray comes to mind, but whatever. Are you going to relic them at a high level? The higher you relic a character, the more mastery stat they get. The more mastery stat they get, if they are support tactic, the more crit avoidance they get. So when you get that up to like that relic 9, 21%, plus the 35 on the arrow, now you're looking at 56% already critical avoidance at the start of battle. That right there is, I would say, 9 times out of 10 worth a strong consideration. Next, does the character's kit or team have crit avoidance synergies, like Darth Traya's leadership, like Malgus's leadership? If so, if they are both a support tactic at high relics with a synergy, then at that moment, So it honestly becomes a no-brainer if you had mod that otherwise for like defense, speed, or not speed, protection or health. The caveat is speed again. Do you need 32 speed, or can you get away with 20 speed or 15 speed as a secondary stat? If you happen to roll like a high secondary, like I have a 28 speed secondary, that is a no-brainer. It's going on one of these characters because I'm only losing 4 speed at that point. Next, can the character be slow, right? That's what I'm just alluding to. If you don't need them to be fast, like take Sith Empire Trooper, who auto-taunts at the beginning of the battle, Royal Guard, who taunts when an ally is critically, or I don't remember what the condition is, but he has an auto-taunt. Ninth Sister, who I didn't put on there, has an auto-taunt for Empire allies. Shore Trooper has an auto-taunt and turn meter gains, right? If they can be slow, then that is another strong indicator that maybe they don't need that speed and they can actually do better by survivability. And then the final thought I have about deciding is, are they a tank? Tanks in general, they're going to be pounded, right? They're going to take hits. So you want them to survive as much as possible. So the go-to is health or protection, but really think about it. If a protection arrow is going to give you an extra 20,000 protection, which is more than you're going to get on most characters, so let's say 15,000 protection, but a crit avoidance arrow reduces the enemy from hitting you from a 240% damage down to 100% of their damage. Ooh, that 140% is going to often be way more than the 15,000 protection or the 10,000 health you're going to get. Really, it's going to yield you a lot more longevity. So are they a tank? Okay. If they are a tank, 2 other questions I have to consider. Do they gain lots of turn meter, right? Like, if they're going to gain a lot of turn meter and they have a way to get to their specials and you don't need a speed stat on it, then fine, do that. And then do they have that auto taunt like I talked about already? Sith Trooper, Royal Guard, Shore Trooper. If they've got an auto taunt, if they're gaining turn meter, then they're going to take turns. It doesn't matter about the speed as much. If they have synergies already with crit avoidance throughout the team, like Malgus and Traya, yes, absolutely put that arrow on them. And then are they a support tactic at high relic? That's the big iffy, right? Like Jabba the Hutt, if you're going against other GLs, you want him to be fast, but he is a support tactic. He's also not likely to be hit a lot, but if you are going to take him against non-GL teams, then he's already fast enough that he's guaranteed to go first anyway, above non-GLs. So at that point, weigh that. Do you really need 32 more speed when he's already 500 speed? Or would you like to have a 50-60% crit avoidance and just not be critically hit? Yeah, it's up to you, but just something to think about. Anyway, folks, like I said at the beginning of the video, if some of this was helpful, insightful, or enjoyable, or entertaining, or you just think I'm nuts but you don't mind watching me again, hit the like, hit the subscribe. I do appreciate it, and I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.